I want to share a bit from a recent client win. It's substantial and it may resonate with you. So here it goes. Hi, I'm John. I'm a certified somatic breathwork guide on the faculty at Kripalu Center and Schreiber Acting Studio in New York City. And I help you clear stress from the deepest running currents of your nervous system so that you can live a more heart-centered, authentic life. I have a client. This person had an abusive parent, and in particular, what this parent would do when they felt my client as a child was misbehaving, they would lock them in a dark room and wouldn't let them out, lights off, right? It was a small room. And so as an adult, trauma is interesting because it is relative, right? Like if you're used to seeing people get punched in the face, seeing someone get punched in the face, it's just sort of like, ooh, it may be mildly unpleasant, but if you've never seen that before, someone gets punched in the face, it could be really jarring and disturbing. The reason I'm sharing that is because if you lock a baby in an industrial refrigerator, I think this is a metaphor that came from one of Dr. Peter Levine's books, that baby could die in there, right? If you shut a kid into an industrial refrigerator, they'll be uncomfortable and it'll be scary. But they could probably figure out the latch on the door and walk their way out. If you shut an adult into an industrial refrigerator, they'll just be like, okay, and they'll just open the door and walk right out. It's nothing. So the same person at different phases of life experiences an event completely differently. So in a sense, you can understand the capacity for a child's nervous system to try to process getting locked in a dark room, a small dark room, and being left in there, screaming, crying, all these things. My client that I was working with during a breathwork session had vivid memories, and most notably too, somatic breathwork, the style that I primarily guide, physical, visceral memories, because memory lives not just in our mind, memory lives in our tissues, in our body, in our soma. So in her breathwork session, this client started to feel these intense memories and sensations in the body from the experiences of being locked in that dark room as a child. Now, what is so profound and powerful here, and the win, and what I want to share, and the happy transformational ending to this story, is that in this session, the client shared that they were able to, as an adult, within their breathwork experience, as all these things got called up, as an adult, they were able to go back, reach out their hand to their childhood self, and walk them out of the darkness. So what I want to share about this specifically is that in somatic breathwork, in energy clearing breathwork, it can be very uncomfortable sometimes because we are intentionally utilizing the breath to churn things up. Sometimes we know things that are in there in our system. Sometimes we know we just don't feel right and we're not sure exactly why or exactly what it is. So whereas talk therapy can be a cerebral experience, it could be many things, and it's an important thing. But where there's verbalization around stories, so much of somatic work, and especially somatic breath work, we don't always have to know. And we don't always have to go looking for something. We can just allow the breath to start to do its thing and be completely surprised about what can come up. So the breath starts to churn things. It starts to bring things to the surface. And here's the difference, and the main point I'm making in sharing this. Sometimes in sessions, we are calling up things that were deeply painful, even traumatizing, whether we realize that's what's going to come up or not. Sometimes the breath churns things up, brings them to the surface. And so essentially, we're calling up the trauma once again. For instance, in this case, we're recalling up the trauma, but the difference is this time we have agency. This time we have a choice, because this client as a kid did not have a choice, right? Now, as an adult, they call up that same memory, but instead of that memory overwhelming the nervous system and cutting them down at the knees, they call up the memory and they have agency, they have choice. So this client, as an adult, now was able to go in time in the memory that lived in their tissues to reach back, put out their hand to their child self and say, "You're safe now, I've got you," and bring their child out of the darkness. So this has happened for many clients in many different ways. And this is just a vivid, beautiful example and so gorgeously and bravely articulated by this particular client. I have had several clients who unfortunately have very similar childhood experiences, that some of which remembered vividly. And although it surprised them when the memory came up in the session, they were able to work with it and they were like, yes, I remember that. Other clients, things that they didn't even know they remembered, things that until they were in that session remembered something from when they were like single digits, 3-4 years old, deep childhood memories that they hadn't even thought about ever since. And these vivid memories come through because memory is not just something in our mind, it lives in our tissues, and we don't have to carry the energetic residue of pain with us for the rest of our life.